We are live on Proline TV for the Lads Football Network. We're talking some ACC football tonight. And for the first time, we get an opportunity to talk to our special guest, Conor O'Neill. He is the publisher of Devils Illustrated. This is a good opportunity to finally get to talk some Duke football, and I appreciate it, Conor.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to
All right,
join.
Conor, how long have you been doing it? How long have you been covering Dukes? I also know you do a little Wake Forest as well.
Oh, gosh. This will be year 5 covering Duke football. I parachuted in about the 9 years before then, but really have sunk my teeth in for the last 5 seasons.
Okay.
Or, I guess 4 seasons, going on 5.
And what is your, do you have any sort of affiliation with Duke or the ACC in general?
No, just, landed here. I went to college in North Carolina, actually, to the school that Duke opens the season with, Elon University.
Okay.
And so that had me get some roots into the state, and then landed out of here pretty quickly after college, and have lived in North Carolina now for about half my life.
Yeah, I moved to North Carolina about, I guess it's a little over, almost 12 years or 13 years now. I'm by Asheville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where are you exactly?
Kernersville.
I have no idea where that is. Where is that?
It's right between Winston-Salem and Greensboro.
Okay, all right.
So it's about an hour and 10 minutes to Duke. Because I was covering Wake Forest before I was covering Duke, so it made more sense for me to live closer to Wake Forest. I would prefer to live a little more in between the two of them to cut down on the travel, but yeah, it is what it is.
And they play this year, right?
Yes.
That's good. That helps.
It's always a weird day for me, man. It's always like, it's like drinking from a fire hose for both sports, honestly, for basketball and football. And I've gotten to the point where now I'm just making jokes about I hope if one team wins a dramatic game in basketball, then there's not a court storming with a issue that has to take 48 hours of oxygen because that was no fun a couple years back.
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe that's not so much fun if you have to do both teams. Logistically speaking, travel wise, it's fun. It's better.
Look, it's a double-edged sword. I spend so many weekends in football season trying to keep half my brain focused on what game I'm trying to remote cover, and the other half of my brain is thinking about what game I'm actually covering, what stadium I'm in.
Yeah.
So to get that 1 week break where they're both in the same place at the same time, and I know both teams, I don't have to look up, okay, who's this backup defensive end who just got a strip sack?
Yeah.
That helps.
You can interview yourself.
Yeah. I do need to find a creative way to do because I always do these Q&As with opposing beat writers throughout the season. I need to find a creative way to do that for this game.
Oh yeah. Well, that's actually simple. All you got to do is you just record the questions and record the answers and edit them in.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So Conor, let's talk about this Duke team, which I tell you what, we haven't talked Duke in a while here for obvious reasons, even though Mike Elko did a very good job, started this resurgence, and now Manny Diaz picks it up. I don't think anybody expected Duke to perform the way they did last year. A lot of that also had to do with just, it's Manny Diaz and, for whatever reason. Look, being a head coach is a lot different than being an elite coordinator. But still, he just out coached anybody's expectations last year. It was an amazing year. They were 6-1 in single digit games, and their only loss in that situation was the overtime loss to SMU by a point. I remember watching that game, and just that was a crazy game. That's college football at its best, or worse, depending on what side of the ball you're on. That must have just really fired up the fans big time after Elko leaving. And now I got to believe that the fans are really juiced for the upcoming season.
Yeah, last year was a big year for Duke to kind of continue the momentum and prove that it wasn't just a Mike Elko thing for 2 years. A lot of the focus going into last year was on who wasn't with Duke anymore. Like Riley Leonard went to Notre Dame.
Oh yeah.
the RJ Oben also went to Notre Dame with him. Brandon Johnson was a standout nickel, and he went to Oregon. There were more examples, and a couple guys got drafted. Right, Graham Barton was a first-round pick. Dwayne Carter left. Jacob Monk was also a draft pick. So you lose 3 draft picks, and you lose a star quarterback to Notre Dame. You lose a bunch of other starters, and because it's Duke, it takes a while for perceptions to change, and everybody's just talking about, well, Duke football is going to be back at the bottom of the ACC.
Yeah.
I don't remember where they were picked. I try my hardest not to pay
Far
attention
down.
to preseason polls.
Far
but
down.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so last year, winning 9 games, it was really a prove it type of season. Duke proved that the culture and I think the foundation that was laid was stronger than anybody realized. That goes almost like the first arrow that is pointing toward that is the fact that they were able to retain their strength and conditioning coach, David Feely.
Okay.
It's actually it's an interesting quirk to it. Like, he was Manny's strength and conditioning coach in Miami, and then Mario Cristobal didn't retain him. So he was available to be hired by Mike Elko when he took over.
Interesting.
So then Elko goes to Texas A&M, and Feely is right in the middle there. And it looked for about 24 to 48 hours like Feely was going to go to Texas A&M. I think actually somebody from down there put the report out that he was going. And then all of a sudden Manny Diaz is hired by Duke, and that's his guy. And so he stays at Duke. But
that's important, like you said. I don't think a lot of people realize how important that position is.
I think people are starting to come around, and they're starting to realize we need to talk about those guys. I don't think we're talking nearly enough about how important they are. I try to, like I'm doing right now, I try to bring up David Feely every chance I get to talk about how important he is to Duke's program. And yet, like, here's the crazy thing about last year for Duke is yeah, they win 9 games, and we're talking about their season as if it was a rousing success. You mentioned that SMU game. I mean, they had a CFP team on the ropes I have never seen, and I hope I don't have to see again because it was that painful to watch. I've never seen a team force 6 turnovers and not score a single point off of a turnover.
I know.
In a game. I still, like, 9 or 10 months later, having trouble wrapping my brain around how that happens. And one of the returns was even got him a goal to go situation or something like that. It was a long return there in the fourth quarter. But anyway, like, that was a break or 2 away from also being a 10 or 11 win season and possibly a trip to Charlotte. Like, they were that close to being that much more surprising last year. I don't know. And with that, of course, you said they were 6-1 in 1-score games. A couple bad breaks. We're talking about a 6-6 or 7-5 season. And we're just saying Manny Diaz did a good job keeping the momentum going. But yeah.
And that's what a lot of people believe when you have those types of seasons. I know Phil Steele's big about that. And look, that's all the averages, and I understand why he's adamant to bring that to the light, because it is important that, statistically speaking, if you have those big seasons where you get a lot of the breaks, you're going to come back down to the median. You're going to come back down to earth a little bit the next year. But what I like about this team, and we'll dive into it, which I think they could potentially avoid that, is just I think the schedule is a little bit easier. And that's going to help. And it's the second year in the system and so forth and so on that we'll get into. So yeah, even though they did have some breaks and things went their way, I think there's a chance that they might be able to kind of replicate what they did last year record wise, maybe even better than that, without having to, have a situation where every, like 7 out of their games are down to the last couple of plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you for the most part. I kind of think their schedule might be a little harder than it was last year.
Really?
Yeah, when you throw in the non-conference shift of playing Illinois, I've seen a couple people float them as a dark horse CFP team.
That's true.
It's a tricky G5 trip to Tulane the following week.
probably the conference schedule is probably where
Okay.
it's more easier this year. But you're absolutely right; those are not easy non-conference
Yeah.
games. No.
Yeah. But yeah, and look, the way that I'm kind of going into this season outlook for Duke is, do I expect them to be in the range of the top 4 or 5 ACC teams like a Clemson or Miami? SMU, I think, will stay there. Maybe not, but I think they're in that next tier. That tier with maybe like a Georgia Tech. Pittsburgh is there often. That if they wind up being in Charlotte for that last or first weekend of December, I don't think anybody would be completely shocked by that.
Not now. No.
Yeah.
And it's not like Duke hasn't been in some big games over the last whatever years, because they have been. It's just that, again, it takes a while, probably a long time when you're considered a basketball school. And if you're going to change the perception a tiny bit, because it's never going to be changed, where people will get excited about football season. Hey, we can actually be a playoff team, that kind of thing. And I think first and foremost, it takes a coach that is going to be there for a long time. Somebody that is not just going to go from coach, because eventually you go from coach to coach to coach, you're going to get a dud.
Yeah.
What do you think about Manny Diaz and his situation here? Do you believe that the football program, the way it's at right now, that if Manny Diaz has even more success this upcoming season, that chances are he's going to get some other big school is going to come calling and he's going to leave? Or does the program, the university, are they ready to do whatever it takes to hold on to someone like Manny Diaz if he's that valuable?
I think right now I would say Duke understands as well as anybody that realignment is coming. It's probably, the can has been kicked down the road 4 or 5 years for the ACC, but the ACC as it exists today is not going to exist this way in a decade. And Duke understands that. And Duke understands that no matter how well they play basketball, that's not going to write their ticket into whatever the next stage looks like. So that's where I think Manny Diaz and Mike Elko was getting yeses to an extent. There's only so much you can do when a school wants to double your coach's salary.
Yeah. That is an exception. A&M is an exception, that they got money. Yeah.
And it played a factor that Mike had coached there for 4 years as their DC.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's where I tend to think there's probably a select few schools that could come calling, could double Manny Diaz's salary, resources, staff salary, all that stuff to where they would check every single box. And maybe Penn State is one of those. Maybe Florida State, his alma mater, would be a possibility.
Yeah.
But I don't think any school from the SEC would be able to come in and get Manny. And I think one of the factors that I think about when this comes up is he's been a head coach before. He was a head coach at Miami. It gets a little bigger than that, but it doesn't get much bigger than that.
Sure.
So he's familiar with the lifestyle of coaching at a place where you're expected to win national championships. And I think that's valuable to Duke keeping him if we think we know what we know about his experience at Miami was not a very pleasant one.
No.
In his hometown and in the town where his father was the mayor. So,
yeah.
So if he felt that way about coaching in that place, then I think it gives Duke a better chance to say, look, you can live a normal life. You can be a normal family man in Durham. Not that this is always going to be the case, but there's not pressure on you to win 10 games at Duke every single season.
That's right.
You can afford to have a couple misses in the portal and you can afford to stumble a little bit, and you're not going to have people, burning you in effigy.
Yeah.
That happens for basketball coaches in the triangle, not football coaches.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tend to think that there's probably a fine line that somebody would have to hit to get Manny to leave Duke, but I think there's a very narrow type of program that would be able to do it.
Well, you named the two of them. That probably does make the most sense. So, and sometimes it's even better if your coach, I mean, you want instant gratification, of course, but sometimes it's just better if your coach just has a nice little up trajectory, slowly. You do that, you do it quietly, and then you get to keep him and extend his contract and all that stuff, and then it gives him more time to have roots and all that. Then boom, all of a sudden you're 12-1 and you're in the playoffs, and he's gone. You can't hold on to him. Okay, so let's talk about the team then, and start with how did spring practice go in general? Was there any major storylines? Was there? I don't even know if there was a game. And some schools play, some don't anymore. What was the big story, if there was any, that came out regarding, especially even on the bad side, if there were any key injuries or anything like that?
The number one storyline was Darian Mensah coming in at quarterback.
Oh yeah.
It takes some, for lack of a better term, cojones to basically tell the quarterback who threw for your school's single season touchdown records in Malik Murphy that you're looking to upgrade the position. Which, if you read between the lines of what's been said, that's where you land. With Darian Mensah coming in for his visit, I think I passed him going into a basketball game less than 24 hours after Malik Murphy announced he was entering the portal. So clearly, I don't think they just got Darian Mensah on the phone the following morning and said, "Hey, do you want to come to Durham for a basketball game tonight?"
Yeah.
They're paying him a lot. They think they have upgraded the position.
I don't think there's any doubt.
Look, the counting numbers for Malik Murphy were great last year. If you actually watched the games, you watched a quarterback that in a lot of games showed you a Jekyll and Hyde flip multiple times between looking like a kid that could be an NFL quarterback and looking like a guy that should not be a starter at a Power 4 school. Yeah. Just the inconsistencies and inaccuracy would drive you nuts if you're a coach, fan, or journalist covering the team. So the biggest thing that Darian Mensah is going to do is he's going to kind of give some versatility to the offense, because Malik Murphy is a pocket passer at heart. He wants to sit in the pocket as his first, second, and third reads work to get themselves open. Darian Mensah he's not going to run for 900 yards this year, but he's a running threat. Yep. And he's able to extend plays with his legs. He's able to kind of move the pocket, reset. And I think that's a better fit for what Jonathan Brewer wants to do offensively. Like I think if you look at some of the things that Duke was trying to do last year, take again the 2-point conversion attempt against SMU that was thrown a little bit outside the reach of Eli Pankel, that's Malik Murphy rolling out. And he barely ever rolled out last year. I think one of the reasons why it had the potential to work was because you never would have expected Malik Murphy to roll out.
Sure.
I think Darian Mensah gives you a lot more capability of what you can do with the offense. They had a spring game. They were not live tackling.
Okay.
It was very much, it was like a Stableford scoring system. So
you couldn't learn anything from that.
I don't think we learned much. I got sunburned that day. I remember that much.
Okay.
I do remember thinking Darian Mensah can throw the ball on the move.
Oh yeah.
That was a big takeaway. But it was also hard because Duke has a few injuries. The one major one in the spring that is going to affect them in the season is they lost an offensive lineman for the year, Micah Sahakian. He transferred into the program last year with an injury, and he played for the last, I think, 4 games. So he retained a red shirt, I believe. And he was in line to be a starting guard, and he's going to miss the season. The other injury that really is the significant one is Terry Moore, the safety who had a breakout season last year. He's a converted running back. He suffered an injury in the Gator Bowl against Ole Miss. And it's still a little up in the air. Manny has not put a timetable on it or anything. I tend to think he might miss all of September. And if they get him back in October, they'll be happy. Obviously, if he comes back before then hallelujah, because they are a little thin at safety. But that's a significant one that it's going to be a story whenever he comes back.
Okay.
Those are the two long-term injuries, and then you know how spring goes. If anybody is only 70 or 80%, they're held out. They're not doing as much, just to make sure that you have them when games matter and not when they're banging up against their teammates.
Were there any? I know we kind of brushed over it after we brought up Diaz, but I noticed most of the staff, at least the top guys, are back. Correct? Were there any? So there really weren't any major changes with the staff, the scheming, nothing like that.
Yeah, I think Manny has said I'm blanking on the exact number. It was something like 36 of the 37 people that would have been in some type of staff meeting for Duke last year are in the staff meetings this year.
Okay.
It's even when you expand it out past the 10 on-field coaches, they have retained just about everybody with the program that they wanted or expected to retain after last year.
Okay. Let's take a look at recruiting. So actually, it looked like they did a pretty good job. Again, this is Duke we're talking about, Duke football. So as far as rivals is concerned, I know they have them ranked in the top 35. I think they had them ranked 31st. Yeah. And they have 3 4-stars. Couple of players on defense, and Gompers and Davis, and a running back out of Louisiana. So where does Duke normally land? What was their average landing spot from some of these services? Like in
not
the 50s?
Here. Yeah. Not in the 30s.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact numbers. I did the signing day stories about where their averages were, both like all of Cutcliffe's years, where they were in Elko's years. It was a really good thing if Duke could get to maybe 45 in the class rankings or team rankings. But the way Manny constructed this staff, they are recruiters. I mean, it is a young and energetic staff that is going to go out and they're built to win recruiting battles. They're built to sell Duke as not just the foundation of the program, not just the on-field success with 26 wins in the last 3 seasons and a bowl trip in each one of them. They're selling. It's not a 4-year decision; it's a 40-year decision. They're selling the Duke connections that you can get. They're selling the business school to grad transfers. I know that's not what we're talking with high school recruiting right now, but
sure,
it's all part of the total package of recruiting. And that's kind of the interesting thing, because nothing against Mike Elko. They were pushing the boulder uphill with where things were with David Cutcliffe. Mike Elko and that staff, really everything about them coming in, they had to hire a lot of the 21st century recruiting type things, like the graphic designers, the social media team types.
So they got the ball headed in the right direction.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And now this staff that Manny's put together, I think, if I'm up to date on my knowledge of Manny's bio, I believe Manny is 51 years old. Only one assistant coach is older than him.
Okay.
And that's Gabe Infante, and I think Gabe's only 53 or 54 maybe. So it is a staff full of guys that are kind of young and hungry assistants. They're not for lack of a better way to put this, they're not the guys that have been in college football for 30 years and had to adjust 18 different times and then now are looking at a sport that is completely different from what they were doing 2 or 3 decades ago.
I wonder who Manny had with him in Miami. I wonder if he learned something from his time in Miami.
I think his time in Miami shapes a lot of why he does what he does, how he says what he says. It's completely different programs. It's completely different fan bases.
Oh yeah.
but I do think that he had one quote where he quoted some Greek philosopher last year. I can't even remember which one it was,
Okay.
Herodoclus or something like that. And it was something about no man crosses the same river twice. It was basically you're never the same person that you were the day before or the year before or whatever, because you learn from your mistakes. And Manny has learned from. It's not like you had a catastrophic tenure at Miami. He was over 500 down there, but he learned from some of the things that happened at Miami, and it's made him a better coach. And his 2 years at Penn State under James Franklin also have made him a better coach than he was even 5 years ago.
Who is there anyone specifically out of this class that you believe has the opportunity to contribute in 2025?
Bryce Davis is the one that I look at. I saw him play a couple times in high school because he's right there in Greensboro. I tend to think it's such a defensive line friendly system that they run. They prioritize TFLs and getting into the backfield as quickly as possible. I think he could wind up in the rotation. I don't think he's taking snaps away necessarily from VJ Anthony or Wesley Williams, because they're both really established ACC ends, but you need more than 2 DNs. And I think Bryce Davis will have a chance to play his way into the rotation there. I don't know about Nate Shepard at running back. I don't know about Bradley Gompers, just because they're coming into positions with guys in front of them.
Okay.
Now, if you want to talk to me about Bradley Gompers next year or 2 years from now,
sure.
I think, yeah, there could be a star player in there. The linemen, not so much. I think.
Oh yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
I'll need to figure out, and this is where it'll be helpful to see some fall camp stuff. If some of the defensive backs they brought in are safeties, that's where there's an opportunity for some snaps, because Terry Moore is going to be out. Deshaun Stone played well last year, but he was playing behind 2 starters, so he's not ever been a starter in his career. They're bringing in Caleb Weaver, who I think is going to be really good, but again, you need to have more than 2 safeties. And right now they've got Deshaun Stone as a rotational guy last year and Caleb Weaver transferring up from UTSA. I think there's going to be some room for guys to play at safety early.
Okay, so that's definitely a position on the team that you would consider one of the danger zones, at least early in the season.
Definitely early in the season, for as long as Terry Moore is on the shelf.
Okay.
And look, these guys go into summer and sometimes they hit benchmarks without us hearing about it. And Terry Moore might be out there for Illinois, but right now I'd expect it to be more like October when we see him. So they'll probably be having to throw somebody into the fire in that September stretch. That it's a little more difficult of a September schedule than last year's September was.
Yeah. By the way, do you think Bryce Davis, because Tucker does a fantastic job with the depth charts, but college, I mean, you know how difficult it is, especially at this time of year. Do you think Bryce Davis should actually be moved up here in this depth chart, that he shouldn't be all the way back here? Because he's behind 4 other defensive ends.
Tyshawn Reed got snaps last year as a freshman, and I was impressed with that. Kevin O'Connor was an unsung hero of their defensive line last year. He was in a really versatile role too, so I'm curious how much he'll stick at end, because they had him playing some nose tackle at only like 250 pounds on 3rd and longs, just to get a little more speed on the defensive line. It was really interesting the way they were moving him around. I would probably stick with Bryce there for now, but with the caveat that he could be a fast mover.
Yep.
I get hesitant, man, when you're talking about guys like Samaj Turner and Kobe Smith that have college years under their belt.
Sure.
It's just hard to see a freshman coming in and supplanting them right away.
Not easy. No, not in football. Okay. So, and I noticed out of all the freshmen, the ones that actually, at least on our depth chart, that are moved up a little bit, and maybe that's just because of what's there on the roster, is at receiver. So, is this basically just because of the fact that there aren't? This isn't a deep class of. This isn't a deep group of veteran receivers coming back.
Yeah, they lost their top two receivers in Jordan Moore and Eli Pancol, and I think Andrew Anthony and Cooper Burkhardt are going to be good. But yeah, they've got big shoes to fill. I'd kind of tab Quayshawn Brown as my breakout guy in the receiver room.
Okay.
He had a great spring game. I would think at least one of those freshmen listed there probably needs to step up and play.
Okay. Any of them that you think has a better chance?
I would probably lean Jamian Little because I think he was the highest rated of the three.
Okay.
Not that recruiting rankings mean everything, especially when you get past the top 500 or so. But Jamian Little is the one that, if I remember the pecking order of the spring game correctly, he was the one that was out there at least with like the second team getting some reps.
All right. Speaking of breakthrough players, why don't we talk about that? So why don't we start? Well, we'll start on offense. So do you think Brown, would you put him in as one of your one or two from the holdovers, of course, not from any transfers or in recruiting, but do you think that Brown would qualify as one of your two breakout players on offense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. He's a electric slot receiver. I think his missed tackle forced is going to be pretty high. I've kind of been waiting for Samir Higgins to break out for the last couple of years, and he just hasn't been able to put it together with consistency. So I always say that you're never too old to have a breakout season.
Sure.
If Samir Higgins puts it all together from a consistency standpoint, it could be him. The other one is Peyton Jones, the running back, who I don't think they're a staff that's going to give a guy 25 to 30 touches a game. So it'll be pretty balanced between Moore and Jones. And I think Anderson Castle will give them some short yardage package stuff. But man, for 2 years, it's felt like we're seeing glimpses of Peyton Jones able to be a game-breaking back, able to be a guy that can give you 12 carries for 90 yards and a couple touchdowns. I think that's coming this year.
And Moore, he was injured last year. Jaquez Moore.
Yeah, he got hurt. He got hurt up on the temporary turf at Northwestern.
Okay, so and he was a pretty important part of their backfield for the first couple of years, correct? And until the injury last year.
Yeah, it was. So Elko's first year, he was number 3 in line, and he was really good. But the two guys in front of him just never got hurt, so he didn't have that many chances. And then the second year, so 2023,
okay,
he had a great season. I think he scored at least one touchdown, maybe 2 against Clemson in the season opener that year. He's a good explosive runner too.
Okay. But right now we're going to go with Jones and Brown on offense. What about on defense for breakout players?
I would say Preston Watson was really impressive as a freshman defensive tackle last year. I never anticipate much from freshmen that have to play really close to the ball, but he showed some promise there.
Okay.
And then the other one is Kamari Robinson is going to step into a starting role at corner opposite Chandler Rivers. I mean, Chandler Rivers is already broken out for all intents and purposes. He's getting preseason All-American nods and that kind of thing. But as these things go, like if Chandler Rivers has this type of season that I think he can have, he's not going to get the ball thrown to his side of the field very often.
Yeah, that's true.
So the corner opposite him, Kamari Robinson made a lot of decent plays last year. As again, he's kind of a guy that was the number 3 corner, so he wasn't getting starter reps, but he was playing a significant amount. I think he wound up around 300 or 400 snaps. So now I expect, like, stepping up into a starting role, he'll have more of an opportunity to be a playmaker, and especially because the corner opposite him is a preseason All-American.
Yeah, taking a look at the top guys, not necessarily like you said, breakouts because they've already broken out. I guess we could probably stick on defense, and so you've seen some good players, even some DBs. Matter of fact, I'm trying to remember. Didn't they do? Who was their last really good corner that they had come out the last several years? Did they have one? How does Chandler Rivers rank? Let's just put it that way. With some of the DBs that have come out of Duke since you've been covering them in the last 5 years, 6 years.
I'll tell you what, the thing that impresses me the most about Chandler Rivers is he is obviously not the biggest guy. I think they list him at 5'10", maybe 180. The amount of times that he's one-on-one with a receiver or tight end or running back who is significantly bigger than him, and he still winds up getting a one-on-one tackle against them, is so impressive. That's the first thing that stands out before you get into the ball hawking stuff, to the point where I think there was a 5-game stretch last year where he had his hands on the ball 5 times or 4 times between a strip sack and a couple interceptions, and I think another like fumble recovery. He's got a nose for the ball. He's been a starter since halfway through his freshman year. And he's going into his senior year. So, he's seen just about everything. I think if I remember correctly, he was called for 1 penalty last year.
Okay.
He's just everything you would want in a lockdown college corner. I don't know how that's going to stack up in the pros. It's these days it feels like if you're not 6'3", you can't play at receiver in the NFL unless you have this absurd separation skills. So they want their corners to be as big as the receivers to be able to knock the ball away from them. But I have a hard time thinking that Chandler Rivers can't find an NFL roster and a draft spot because of his knack for making plays. Just how much film is out there of him doing the right things and being in the right spot and always being around the ball.
Well, maybe he can play the exact spot, because now I just checked and see. I knew there was somebody, because he actually plays for my team, the Jets, and that's Michael Carter.
Yeah.
And I was like, because Carter is also actually considered one of the better nickel corners in the NFL. And maybe that's the spot Chandler Rivers will play with his size limitations. So that is definitely possible. So, that might be a good comparison. And who knows, maybe when he comes out, that's exactly what some of the scouts might even do. They like to do that. So, okay. Then we've got Wesley Williams. Is he considered equally as important as far as talent? Is he definitely the top pass rusher on the team?
I kind of think it's a toss-up between Wesley Williams and VJ Anthony.
That's good.
Their seasons kind of happened in inverse last year. It looked like for the new system that Vincent Anthony Jr. was the better of the two, and then in the second half of the year, I would have told you that Wesley Williams was playing a little bit better than VJ was. They're both very skilled pass rushers. VJ was finally able to bulk up a little bit. He played a lot as a freshman and sophomore under Mike Elko and was underweight for all intents and purposes. I mean, he was trying to play defensive end in the ACC at about 220 pounds, maybe 230.
Okay.
He was able to finally kind of fill out, and the scheme fit him better last year. The shift from what Mike Elko does defensively to what Manny Diaz does, it fit VJ a little bit better. And Wesley Williams, he's the one that I kind of think is a player who fits any scheme. He's big, physical, maybe 270, 280. Looks like he was kind of constructed in one of those creative players in a video game.
First man off the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, VJ is a little bit more speed. I think Wesley Williams is a little more versatile in pass rush moves, but both of them just give you so much that it's tough to determine which one is the better pass rusher.
And then linebacker, there's some losses there, but Morris is another guy that was banged up. Is that correct? And he's back, so that helps. And then Freeman, I noticed Freeman had a big 100-plus tackle season in 2023. But was it just a matter of the guys in front of him last year, which is better? And even though his totals went down, that he's still going to be a really good replacement for those guys? Or was there an injury, or what was the deal there?
I think there was a little bit of him learning the new system, and it took a few more games than maybe he would have liked, or maybe the stats indicate. And also, Ozzie Nicholas had a great season. Alex Howard was the other transfer from Youngstown State. They were two transfer linebackers that maybe were able to pick up the system a little quicker and fit it a little better. But yeah, look, you're in Trey Freeman. You're getting a guy that has been on the field a lot for Duke for the last 2 seasons. That's really valuable. And then there's depth there. Kendall Johnson's played a bit. They really like Luke Margot, and Nick Morris coming back is a big benefit.
Yeah. So Francois. So speaking of transfers, so he had what? It's interesting. I see that he had almost similar statistical seasons to a point where he had 51 tackles and a pick 6 in 2024, and 57 tackles and a pick 6 in 2023. So I think Duke would be okay with some stats like that. Maybe they'd like a little bit more, but not necessarily, because you got Freeman and Morris there. So I would guess that. And Manny being a defensive guy, you also know anytime you have a guy like a coach like Diaz, and then you're talking about defensive players, you got to boost them up a little bit, because that's Manny Diaz's job, and you would guess that he would do a good job of that. So I would think that he's got to be pretty excited about the linebacking crew coming back, even though these are pretty much all new starters from last year.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Jaden Francois. He had a big recruiting profile and went to UCF and didn't play much, but graduated in 3 years, and then played a lot at Utah State the last 2 years. He'll be in the nickel position that.
Okay.
There wasn't much to tell you last year that Duke was going to be okay at nickel. We didn't really see all that much from Cameron Bergeron in the 2 years of Mike Elko's tenure. And part of that was because Brandon Johnson was really good at that position and stayed healthy for 2 seasons. And Cameron Bergeron last year was one of the breakout players of the team. He had a great season. Quarterback pressures and got his hands on the ball a couple times, and was like, oh my God, even through a coaching change, that position is able to give you a high impact player. And so I know it's never going to be this simple, but I do kind of think we'll see a lot of the same stuff from Jaden Francois.
And then you mentioned Weaver. So the safety Weaver, I mean, he had some really nice. I mean, last year for Sam Houston State, he led the team in tackles with 97, 4 interceptions, 6 pass blocks. And also in 2023, he added 49 tackles, 2 interceptions, 4 PBs. And so that's some really good production, and he seems to be getting better each year. He's going to step up to the ACC. But again, as you said, until Terry Moore comes back, that's going to be a big addition to have him kind of holding the fort along the way. But it's going to be interesting to see how he does in the ACC.
Yeah, the one note I'll add about him is I need to verify this, but he either grew up with or at least went to the same school as Chandler Rivers. So they're best friends from Texas, and they're finally getting to reunite.
That's cool.
I think Caleb has 2 seasons of eligibility. Chandler's on his last one. So they'll get to play together for 1 season.
By the way, would you have Weaver backing up Stone?
I think so. I don't know as much as I should about how Duke designates their safety positions.
It's early.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I would have told you last year Terry Moore and Jalen Stinson traded off of being the free safety or being closer to the line, because both of them, I think, had some QB pressures, but both of them also made some plays in the middle of the field 25, 30 yards deep. So I don't think they make that big of a designation between which one plays close, which one drops all the way back.
Okay. A couple of Ivy League players, Josiah Green, defensive tackle from Dartmouth on defense. And then offensively, there's the kid, and you've already mentioned him, the wide receiver, Cooper Barkate from Harvard, who had a 1,000-yard season last year. So anytime you get kids from the Ivies, it's a tricky situation, completely big time, move up in levels. But sometimes you find a player that can still make a difference. So what do you think about those 2 Ivy Leaguers?
Duke has been able to thrive in the Ivy League transfer market. They've gotten some really high impact guys that you wouldn't think were going to have the types of seasons they had. I mean, Ozzie Nicholas, I think, was their leading tackler last year. He came from Princeton.
Okay.
They've gotten some guys on the offensive line that, you're looking at a guy coming from playing on the offensive line at Harvard and thinking, well, I don't know how that's going to translate going from Ivy League football to ACC football. And all of a sudden you're looking at it on the field and on PFF, and it's like, oh my God, this guy, what were you concerned about? Like he's able to more than hold his own out there. And to throw things all the way back to what we started talking about with David Feely, some of these guys with Duke will tell you that when you take a guy who, not to throw shade at Ivy League facilities, but Ivy League facilities are not going to be comparable to ACC facilities.
Sure. Yeah.
When you're able to give them some more resources and some better equipment.
Yeah.
And the other part is they're not at an Ivy League school anymore. They're not doing Ivy League coursework.
Yeah. Well, they're not in the Ivy Leagues to play football.
Right.
That's not. Yeah.
Right.
So
they can kind of take off with their strength and conditioning with how they're able to kind of approach football. And it hasn't worked with everybody across the board with Duke's Ivy League guys, but they've got a pretty high hit rate of the ones that they've brought in, making it work and getting a lot of good quality production from them.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing about the transfer portal more than anything, is seeing these kids that are in the lower levels and they get to move up. And that gives them a much better chance of, if they ever had a chance, of getting to the pros, because they get the type of coaching they haven't had before at a much earlier stage of their development. And then if they actually can make it, then they have a much better shot. So that's what I like about it. Okay, so do you think either player? Have you seen anything yet about whether or not you think either one of them might have a bigger impact, or do you think they'll just, as far as you know, they should both have a good opportunity to contribute?
I think both of them will have a pretty big opportunity. I mean, I expect both of them to start. The one that maybe won't start is if Preston Watson is that much improved as a sophomore defensive tackle, then maybe he starts over Josiah Green. But
okay,
that's another one where I'm not all that confident in saying that Preston Watson plays the same position as Aaron Hall or plays the other position that he can start next to Aaron Hall.
Yeah.
Cooper Barkante, I mean, I expect not a 1,000-yard season out of him, but I expect him to be on the outside and starting and playing well. I think if I read correctly, I think somebody had him as a 4-star out of high school. I don't think he's your typical Ivy League receiver that maybe runs a 4.9 and has just been winning deep balls against some 5'8 corners. I think he's got a little more flash and sizzle to his game than what you would stereotype an Ivy League receiver as.
Hey, well, that's still pretty good numbers, no matter how you slice it, even in the Ivy. So, okay, so I've officially butchered my name for the show. So that's Barkate.
I think so.
Okay, it's not Barkate.
I don't think it's Barkate, but,
okay.
but I could be wrong. You could be right.
All right. Well, at least now I'm on alert. Okay, so let's continue with some of those transfers, especially Andre Anthony. Now, I'm being a Michigan fan. I know all about Andre Anthony, and I know there was a lot expected of him about 10 years ago. That's how long he's been in college. Obviously a joke, but still, that's what it feels like. So I just can't believe he's still in college. But anyway, I guess this is a really good chance for him because I think it's just a matter of him staying healthy. And if he can stay healthy and he's in the right system, and this is a great opportunity for him with a really young, exciting quarterback. So now, look, if Brown breaks out, that's great. But this has got the makings of potentially a nice little receiving core if they can stay healthy.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing here is they're not that deep, and you're kind of relying on 2 transfers plus a second-year jump from Chase Tyler, maybe a freshman coming on, and then you need Quayshawn Brown and Samir Higgins to kind of be your rocks in that room. Now, it's not like any of those things are far-fetched, but it's probably far-fetched that all of them happen, that you stay healthy and get all these jumps and the transfers translate and everything comes together. That's where I kind of look at it and say, if Duke hits on maybe 2 out of 4 or 3 of the 5 things that need to happen for receiver, that's where their goal still rings true and can help them. They want to be more consistent and more explosive in the run game this year. They need to be more balanced. They did not run the ball very well last year, especially toward the end of the year when the bodies were wearing down. So I think that happens. It's going to take some better running backs and then some better offensive line play.
King, the tight end, comes from Utah. We have him there as a starter. Do you think he's definitely the starter going into camp?
I'm not sure. Jeremiah Hazley was playing at a high level 2 seasons ago. Had a season-ending injury last year at Northwestern. So he's another one that lost on that temporary field up there. And then really the silver lining of not only did they lose Hazley last year, they lost Nicky Dalmolin after maybe 4 or 5 games, maybe 6 games. Jake Taylor was young, and there wasn't all that much to tell you that he could be a starting caliber tight end in the ACC. He was playing really good football by the end of the year.
Okay.
So I kind of look at their tight end position, and all of a sudden I'm saying they've got 3 guys that could wind up as a starter and you feel good about. So that's another thing that can help offset, as you know, the maybe a little bit more of a thin receiver room is if you can.
Oh, you there, Connor? Connor froze.
Receivers that can.
Okay. I don't know if he froze to everybody out there. You froze to me there in the last 5 seconds. What did you say, Connor?
Yeah, I froze a little bit too. Just was saying that
the 3 tight ends. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have 2 or 3 tight ends you can throw out there, you can offset a receiver room that might be a little more thin than you'd like.
And then the running backs, like you said. So Castle comes in from App State, little production last year. And then you mentioned, of course, we just talked about King. So, and Castle, we talked about Moore and Jones. Will that make up the main room there? Will anyone else have a shot, or do you think it's just those 3?
I think it'll be those three. Maybe Nate Shepherd, if he's really a freshman revelation, he throws himself into the mix. Travis Bates started his Duke career as a running back, was a safety last year. Now he's back at running back, which I don't know. I'm not trying to say the guy is never going to play, but it's never a good sign when you've switched positions twice in your career. Sure. But yeah,
and they can use a safety too. So.
Yeah, that's the other part that was like, wow, I didn't think they'd be moving guys off of that position. But yeah, I think if the position stays relatively healthy, I think Moore, Jones, and Castler are the only three you're really going to see get carries this year.
Okay, and then before we wrap up with the final segment, I of course we've saved actually two more to go, and that is we definitely got to talk about the offensive line you mentioned. The good part is that there's a lot more experience and holdovers, so that can only be a plus compared to last year.
Yeah, this is where they did some incredible work last year. Like for Manny's first spring game, they had 5 offensive linemen suited up. I mean, they had to run a makeshift like 7-on-7 for half of the spring game in Manny's first year because the offensive line was such a shell of what it had been. Now they have a fully functioning unit, and they returned 4 starters. Like Fina, Craycraft, Pickett, and Parker, those were all the starters last year at those positions. I think Parker is a future NFL pick. I don't expect him to be at Duke after this season, just because I think he's shown enough already, and I think he's going to have another jump into being a possible like top 3 or 4 round draft pick. Craycraft was broken in last year as a new starter at center. So it's valuable when you have a center that has a year under his belt as a starter. Yep. Bruno Fina's PFF grades were a little subpar last year. I not to throw everything into the Bible of PFF.
Yeah.
He was also playing through an injury.
Okay.
So there's a thought that he will be much improved from what he was last year. Jordan Larson is the transfer they had to scramble to get because of the Sahakian injury. And they like him. They think he'll be good. It's always a jump when I think he's coming from South Dakota.
Yeah.
So he'll have a jump to handle. But yeah, they've got a really good starting 4. They think Jordan Larson can plug into that guard spot. Now, if any of those guys go down, you're talking about some inexperienced guys behind them. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. But look, I always go to this. I mean, you talk about depth going into a season and depth early in the season where you don't know about a guy. Brian Parker's first start was against Notre Dame in 2023, and we had no idea. Like he's filling in for Grant Barton. Grant Barton we knew was going to be a high round pick, and it was just like, oh my God, Notre Dame is going to feast on this guy who's starting for the first time. He played great, and he's really looked the part since then of a guy that you can put on the offensive line and not worry about that side for the most part. So
sounds like they got a good one then.
Yeah, they're building on that offensive line. They're doing a really good job developing.
Okay. And so we saved the best for last, and that is Mensah. Because watching him play early last year, it didn't really take long to see the kind of talent the kid had. And that's why I was actually surprised when he landed at Duke, because I thought he could have landed at any place he wanted to that had an opening, which I think is just great for Duke. And that's why I know you go from a quarterback that broke some records and all that stuff. But again, it's Duke. So I don't think there's any question that Mensa will break more records. He's that good. And if he plays the next couple of years and he's coached right, I actually think the kid's got talent to be a high draft pick. So it's just a matter of, again, all the coaching and everything else, but there's a lot to like about him.
Yeah. From what I understand about him so far, from what I saw in the spring game, he looks the part of a star caliber quarterback in a power conference. I think that's coming. I don't know if I expect him to go out there and throw 5 touchdowns a game. I don't know if I'm, I wouldn't because I'm a voter, but if I did, I don't know if I'm throwing Heisman money on him.
Yeah.
But I do think he winds up being one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the ACC this year.
I would agree with that.
And at least, everybody is a potential free agent until we have collective bargaining in college sports, but he's on a 2-year deal. So it's 2 years of this, at least. He's got 3 years of eligibility, but there's a good place to start from with Darian Mensa, and I think Duke can go pretty far with him.
Yeah, he's 200-1 to win the Heisman. So just so you know there. And of course, the hard part of any player playing for a Duke football program is just not going to get the voting necessary, no matter how good you are, unless you do something really spectacular in big games. And I don't know whether Duke has the ability around him, but there's possibilities, and you just never know. And I think we'll find out right away in that first month against those teams. He's going to play his former team. That's going to be big. But that Illinois game right off the bat, because they can play defense. That's a Big Ten defense. And we're going to find out a lot about Duke and Mensa in that first game of the season against a real opponent. So,
yeah, that's what I like about their schedule this year compared to last year's. Last year, it felt like there was a gradual buildup, and that was fine. And I think that's what that team needed under a new staff and a new system, and everybody getting to know each other when the bullets are flying in the heat of a game. I think it's good for this team that has been together for a year for the most part. They have some transfers. We obviously just talked about them. But I think it's better to kind of jump into the deep end of the pool in that first weekend of September. Like I think that's going to help this team kind of find their footing. The part of the schedule I don't like for Duke is the off week, one game, and then the other off week. I think that that could not have turned out worse. It's off week. I think then it's Georgia Tech at home and then another off week. It might be a road game at Georgia Tech. I'm not sure. But they're gonna go about, what would it be, about 27 days or 28 days with one game being played. And that's going to be a weird feeling on the bodies.
Let's see. So they got back-to-back there, Illinois at home, Tulane on the road, and then the NC State starts the ACC games back-to-back there with Syracuse. You got
to go out to Syracuse and then out to Cal.
Do have to go out west. Then there's the bye.
Yeah. Home against
before Georgia Tech, which by the way is good before Georgia Tech. That's going to be a really big game. And then you've got the other bye before Clemson.
Yeah.
I guess the only good thing is that at least you got time to prepare against two of the top games in the conference this year.
And I'll tell you what, with how physical Brent Key has Georgia Tech playing, it's good to have an off week after that game, because your body is going to be beat up after you play Georgia Tech. That might be the surest bet in the ACC this year. But having one game in a 3-week stretch is weird, man. It's going to be a weird thing for Duke.
I mean, the only good thing about it could be if they get off to a really good start, and then these are really big games, then again, they've got time to prepare, and the other teams won't be as rested as they will be. So maybe they could use that as an advantage. Then after that, Connecticut on the road, Virginia, North Carolina at Chapel Hill, of course. How is the Duke North Carolina football rivalry?
It's good. It's obviously it's not going to be as big as basketball, and it's not as big a rivalry as UNC versus NC State football wise. But there is some nastiness to it. There is some verve to it, to steal a favorite term of Mike Krzyzewski. Duke won last year. They had lost, I think it was 4 straight to Carolina. And so it was in Durham, and they have I think it's really cool that there's a trophy involved. So there's a victory bell that gets painted the winning school's colors. And so Duke went over and grabbed the victory bell and ran it across the field, and we're ringing it. And, hey,
look, the college kids have fun.
Yeah. Nobody's mistaking Duke Carolina football rivalry for any type of basketball rivalry in the state, but it is a good one.
Their win total is 6.5. Now, it is a high number at -160, meaning that it's really more like 7.
Yeah.
So most people actually expect Duke to get about 7 wins. I guess the question is, and they had 9 last year. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm actually a little bit surprised that it's only 6.5. That's why it's got the -160. So, I wouldn't mind actually even thinking 8. If it was 7.5 and I got even numbers and I can just go into that, I'd be fine with that. Because again, we looked at the schedule, and even though that Illinois game is probably as big as any game that they're going to play this season, because it's the first game of the real season, but it's also it's a big game. I mean, this is one of their, what would you say, one of their 3 toughest games of the season, and it happens at a very important time of the year. It's one of those kind of springboard games if they win.
Yeah, there's one team on this schedule that I expect to be a CFP team, and that's Clemson. And then I would say Illinois is probably, if you had to ask me right now who I think the number 2 most likely team to make the CFP on this schedule is, I would say it's Illinois. So that's the one I'm looking at, as that's going to tell us a lot about this Duke team. And then whether they win or lose that game, the following week at Tulane, one of those tricky G5 road games, is going to tell us a lot. If they beat Illinois and then go down there and follow it up with a win at Tulane.
Yeah. If you don't want a hangover. Yeah.
If it plays out the opposite, if they lose to Illinois at home and then go on the road and win what I'm sure is going to probably be a hornet's nest of a game at Tulane, it's going to pump some life back into the season for them. Those weeks 2 and 3 are going to tell us a lot. And then, I mean, NC State is a good little rivalry. They're close to each other. Raleigh and Durham are about 20-25 minutes apart. At Syracuse is a weird place to play. I'm not sure how much to expect out of Cal this year, but it is a road trip 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, the Georgia Tech one is because I think Georgia Tech is going to have a really good season. I do. I think that's why I think both Georgia Tech and Duke, I think this game could be huge for the ACC, because I think the winner of that game could end up as that third team in the ACC that's trying to break through and be a sleeper to the ACC championship game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one where, trying to remember my series history here, but Georgia Tech has gotten Duke a couple times. I think it was Elko's first season. Duke went down there and it was their first loss of the year. Trying to remember correctly. They've become such a tough team to play, because Brent Key has made everything about just being more physical than you.
Oh, yeah. And they got a good quarterback. So that is it's funny too, because Texas A&M, they sure wish they had him last year. That was the only thing missing from Texas A&M was that quarterback room.
Absolutely.
And even though I know that Reed came in and gives them some hope this year, but he was too young last year. And I mean, they could have been a definite playoff team if they had their quarterback situation straightened out. But yeah, that should be nice. A couple like sleeper quarterbacks in the ACC that, I know, maybe not in the ACC, but the national people aren't really too familiar with that. Hey, watch this game. If both teams are off to good starts this season, that could be, one of those little nice games that you want to watch. But I look at the schedule and I definitely see 7 wins. So the question is, can they get 8, 9, or 10? And that all depends on whether or not they're going to have a special season.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And that's kind of the way it's been for Duke for the last 3 seasons, right? I mean, they won 9 in Elko's first year. They won 9 in Manny's first year. The year in between, they went 7-5, or I guess 8-5 with the bowl win. But you look at that 23 team, and they're the ones that beat Clemson. They're the ones that they're a 4th and 16 stop against Sam Hartman away from being 5-0 and probably ranked in the top 10 or 15 at the end of September of that season. So you start splitting hairs over which games you won and which team actually was better between a 9-win and an 8-win team.
By the way, they're 25-1 to the 6th choice to win the ACC. So if you think Duke has one of those magical seasons ahead of them, then why not? I guess, like you said, there's everybody is. I think most people are going to unilaterally pick Clemson. It's the smart choice. We get all that. But I also think we have to just remember just a year ago that everybody was down on Clemson. And so it's anything can happen. There are some very interesting potential sleepers in this conference. Duke is clearly one of them, as is Georgia Tech, as we mentioned, and a couple others in there. So what do you think? I know it's early. You're going to definitely have to take a look at this team in camp, as well as most analysts who are covering these teams. With the transfer portal nowadays, you can't, now even more than ever, if anybody tries to make predictions at this point in the season, they're nuts. And I know it's just for clickbait. You just can't. I mean, you have to wait until you get to camp, and then injuries might occur and things of that nature. So, and then we're going to have links in the description of this video that you could check out where you can follow Conor covering the team. You also have a podcast called the Big J and Little J Show. And how often does that go on?
During the season, about once a week. We'll start pumping out some preseason content here in the next week or two. It's co-hosts, so 2 guys' schedules lining up doesn't always work out the best, but we make it work with Jordan and myself.
And when do you come back? When do you start talking on that podcast?
We'll probably get something out the first week of August.
Okay.
We'll see and kind of go from there. We will have to be talking basketball around that time too, because it is Duke.
Well, that's true. Even though it's early, but not for Duke. So I get it. It is what it is. When does camp start?
I need to confirm that. I think it would be their first game is August 28th. So I believe it's a month out. I think it could be July 29th.
So
maybe
in 2
July
weeks,
28th.
Couple of weeks they start camp, probably around then. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So again, if this is going to be one of those seasons that is going to be just as entertaining as last season, and maybe even more, I look forward to the opportunity of bugging you a few times during the season, that maybe we can preview some games. Maybe talk about either. Who knows? Maybe we can even talk about Illinois or Georgia Tech or Clemson. We'll have a week off in between those games, so I know you'll have a little bit more time than normal if they get off to this great start. So, but we'll see. Either way, it's got to be nice for you Duke fans out there watching this, that you've got a football team that you could be excited about. And I know that just hasn't really been the case for quite a long time, but things are starting to get better. And hopefully if Manny can do some magic here again this season with Mensa, hopefully he'll stick around. That would be nice. And I'm sure fans will start to slowly, gravitate a little bit to the football side of things. Do they, I was noticing, but something on the field, something about did they have like a blue field or something like that they were thinking of having or something?
No, I think that might have been an April Fool's joke.
Oh, that was a joke. Okay. That wasn't a bad idea, by the way.
It's my least favorite holiday because every once in a while somebody will throw a good idea out there.
Yeah, right.
Well, why aren't you doing this?
Yeah. So, because who's the other? Which other college does that? Not we all know Boise does it, but there's another. Is it Coastal Carolina? I think they do.
Yeah, Coastal has I believe Coastal has a team.
And then Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan does something like that, I think, as well.
Okay.
I know you probably don't know. It's a MAC. Nobody watches Eastern Michigan, but I've noticed it. Watching one of their games.
The only Eastern Michigan game I've watched recently was the snow game, so you couldn't even see the.
Yeah, you couldn't see the field anyway. So I don't think that's a bad idea at all. It's college. Why not? I mean, I think it's fun. I know they do it in the, I think that up in the north and in the FCS, I think the school Cooper Cup came from, what was it? Washington, something or another. I think they have one of those fields.
Yeah.
And every time I see one of those fields, they're nice. I got no problem with it. I know the basketball field sometimes when the basketball courts can sometimes be a little bit, especially if there's too many things on the. I don't need that. It's come on. It's too fast. I don't need all those distractions. But in football, I've never seen it not look good. Yeah. So anyway, that's like you said, it was April Fool's, so we're screwed. All right. Anyway, Conor, I appreciate it, and again, I look forward to hopefully getting the opportunity to talk to you this season.
Thanks, Chris.